Live from SEC Media Days, as we're here with the one, the only Tennessee Center Cooper Mays, brought to you by our good friends at City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Dude, let's go, man. You're at SEC Media Days, and you're looking great.
Appreciate it. You know, a little orange and white, a little navy blue.
I like that. Now,
smile on the face.
I think including Josh Heupel, everybody else wore Nikes, I think, but you went with the dress shoes. Why?
Went with the dress shoes. I don't know. This probably the most complimented shoe I've ever worn.
That shoe's tight.
It's like, it's called, for you guys can't see it, it's a great, I think it's called the Jack, maybe. It's from Taft. It's it's a next level kind of thing.
I mean, I walked in here and I thought, great snapper, even greater shoes.
This is what I'm trying to be here.
How excited are you about this season? You faced so much in the offseason about whether or not you were coming back, and you faced all these questions, but now it kind of feels like it's somewhat here. How excited are you?
Excited, excited as I can be. I'm not a guy that gets too high or too low, really. You know that, but I'm prepared, and I feel like I've been doing the right stuff, so I'm here for it.
You mentioned something that I didn't know in your press conference a little bit earlier, that you had, if you don't mind me asking, found faith later in your high school, or sorry, your college career. Can you kind of talk about that? Because I think most people were raised in church and maybe they follow it that way, but you found faith a little bit older.
Well, I mean, I was raised in the church and went to church most Sundays out of my childhood. Was always there, but didn't really invest. A relationship's got to be two parties, meeting in the middle. And I wasn't putting forth any effort. Like, I would go to church and everything. Like, I wasn't like an atheist or anything, but just kind of been nourishing my faith and just putting it kind of in the forefront of my mind, and seeing my life through a different lens has been super different for me. Because I used to kind of think all about me and what I wanted. You kind of just live through your flesh, and whatever materialistically sounds good, whatever pleasure sounds good, you kind of go with it. But I feel like later in my life, just kind of getting older, just got to see life through a different lens. All of that stuff that is right at your fingertips kind of leaves you feeling empty, and doesn't really fulfill you. But the Lord is always going to be there for you, and as long as you water that relationship, He'll always meet you where you're at.
Well said. When was there a moment? When was this where you felt like you made the transition?
The biggest thing was probably my hernia surgery. When I kind of had that time, it wasn't, I mean, it's not super devastating or anything, but just had like a full week where I could kind of just be on my own and kind of just think about stuff. And it's pretty eye-opening when you kind of get out of your little normal routine every day, so to speak. I've spent a lot of my life just doing kind of the same things every day. Mm-hmm. And when you get a substantial break where you can kind of step back and kind of look at everything, it changes your perspective a little bit. And
I don't think people realize how frustrating that time was for you, because not only were you hurt and you couldn't play, but you had to lay like in a prone position for how long?
A good week. I couldn't hardly get out of bed. It was rough. I didn't even really have that tough of a time with it, because I kind of found the Lord, like, as soon as I figured out what was going on with me right before my surgery, kind of like, that's when it hit me that all the stuff was going to take place. And a guy named Mackenzie Milton, we've talked about him on here before. He's a former Heisman candidate, would have been a first-round draft pick. About 2 games before the end of his senior season, he had not a career-ending knee injury, because he came back, but I mean, most people wouldn't come back from it. Was a different kind of player after it. And he kind of spoke to me about how, oh man, not like pointless, but like how everything in this life kind of just washes away. Everything in this life passes away, and you just die without it. So there's only one thing in this life that is everlasting, and that will sustain after death and everything, and that's your soul and what you choose to do with it. So the Lord will bring you to your knees, but just hopefully you will get there before he brings you to your knees.
Were you brought to your knees last year?
Oh man, I don't know if I was brought to my knees. I'm sure there's a way worse things in my life that will occur than a a 6-week recovery from a hernia surgery. But definitely, I will say one thing, man. When you make plans without the Lord, they will be spoiled, you know.
It's well said. How many times do you think you'll be asked about Nico at SEC Media Days?
I'm like an hour in. I've already been asked like 2 or 3 times. So like 15 maybe, huh?
Oh, like 1,500. 1,500. Let me, because you've got like 4 media places to go. Well, let me ask you this: when it comes to being the center of attention, do you feel like, no pun intended, but do you feel like you can help him a little bit? Because everybody was talking about Cooper last September, and everybody's going to be talking about Nico this September. Can you help him with the publicity and the media requests and all that stuff?
I'm sure I could help him. I don't really know if he'll need any. I mean, he's a really intelligent kid, really got his head on straight, in my opinion. So I don't know if he'll need much help. He's been raised right, and he knows how to handle himself.
Let me ask you about this offensive line. What's the most dominant game that you feel like you guys have played that you look back, and maybe it didn't look that way to fans, but you look back and you say, man, we really gelled and played well together?
I thought a game that we did well, especially up against their really, really hard task, was Texas A&M. You know, Texas A&M last year, I think, was ranked the #1 defense maybe or something along those lines, maybe #1 in some aspect regarding defense. And it was mainly to do with their front seven and what they did. They were really good up front, had a really good week against Bama the week before. And then, you know, we came out there and I think we executed our game plan well and ran on them. And, you know, a lot of people think that we're just a team that just throws everything around, super explosive. But I feel like we did a good job, you know, putting it on the ground and doing what we wanted with it.
What was the key to that week leading up to just healthy maybe?
Really, I think the biggest key was just us getting our assignments right. They had a really unorthodox defense where they got 3 down linemen and their kind of backers flowed and played interchangeably. So it messes up your scheme a little bit as far as spots, but we did pretty well. I think we did our part.
You've talked a lot about Amari in the time that we've been doing our podcast brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, but specifically, how has he maybe made you better? I ask him the same question, but you guys are going against each other in practice all the time.
Oh, just an everyday battle between 2 guys, you know, that are trying to get to the top of their craft is always gonna make somebody better or both guys better in that regard. So yeah, I mean, it's just every day. We've been here for 5 years together now, and that's who I go against every day, you know.
Okay, will you do me a favor? Will you make a mental note, and then next week I'll ask you, well, you don't have to say who it was. I'll ask you the dumbest question that you were asked at SEC Media Day.
Got it.
Done. Love it. You got to tune in next week. Hit like and subscribe. It's that simple.